afternoon, everyone. I call this June 13th, 2024 Jacksonville Water and Sewer Advisory Committee meeting to order. Mr. Vice, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda items? All right. Are there any discussions? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion to accept the agenda.
I make a motion, we accept the agenda as is.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Agenda adopted. Has everyone had a chance to review April 11th meeting minutes?
Yes.
Are there any omissions or corrections? Okay. Hearing none, I'll accept the motion to accept the minutes as written.
Okay, I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes as written.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Minutes approved. With that being said, we'll turn it over to Mr. Hanson.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board. Tonight we're going to talk about the Piney Green Sewer Project. This is a project that the city completed many years ago. Kind of give you the history of the project and an update. We do have some update for you, and we'll kind of walk through it. I will say that this is a historic project. It actually began somewhere around 2009 or 10 timeframe, and it took multiple years to pull everything together and then multiple years to construct. So to get this project started, it's actually a partnership of multiple entities, and there were multiple agreements that were developed. One of the first was with the city, OMWASA, and NCDOT, and that was for the construction of the backbone infrastructure. And then there's a city and OMWASA agreement for conveyance and maintenance of the system, because a portion of our system goes to their system. And then there's an agreement with the city and OMWASA for treatment, but OMWASA doesn't have any treatment facilities in that area. So OMWASA has an agreement with Camp Lejeune for treatment at their wastewater treatment plant. So it's a pretty unique project because it's built on interlocal agreements between us, OMWASA, and the base for ongoing, and then DOT when it was originally constructed. So just to give you an idea, I tried to break this up, and I apologize, because it's such a long project that it covered, it's hard to break it up into one slide that you could see. But this shows you basically the top left corner is Northeast Creek, where the bridge crosses Piney Green Road. Where the bridge on Piney Green crosses Northeast Creek. To the north of that is Regalwood Subdivision. To the south of that is the church and Highland Forest Crossing Shopping Center, which that shopping center, along with the Food Lion and Bojangles, are in city limits. And you can kind of see that outlined. Just to the right of that outline, which is, let's see if this works, right there, to the right of that is White Oak High School, just to give you bearings. So the Highland Crossing Shopping Center is in city limits. It had a small pump station and force main already that pumped back up to Country Club Road and came into our system. So that's how we were serving that. So if you look, you can kind of see a little green mark right there that comes under the N, and then it says 8-inch FM, so that's force main. So that's the top end of the system that was constructed, and this was constructed with the Piney Green Road widening project. So this infrastructure actually went in the ground with that project. So from there, that force main right now is just a dead force main. It's just a dark, there's nothing coming through it. It's actually there for either tying in existing development that begins to fail, with either septic systems or Riegelwood actually has its own small package plant. So it's there to enable us and MWASA to work together to handle some of that existing development, as well as any new development that would happen north of Northeast Creek. So the orange line that you see is 18-inch gravity sewer, and that comes all the way down to this little green box, which is a pump station. We call that Poplar Branch Pump Station. It's a 1,000-gallon per minute pump station, or is capable of handling 1,000 gallons per minute. It doesn't handle that currently. And then just a few things to note. We tied in the small little station at Highland Forest Crossing Shopping Center into this line, so that flow does go through that line. We actually picked up some commercial development right along Piney Green Road, kind of in the general vicinity of across from the high school, White Oak High School. And then we have this stub out. And this stub out is critical. That stub out actually serves a property that we'll talk about in just a few minutes, but it serves all of this vacant track, which is annexed and part of city limits. It was formerly known as the Patriot Park subdivision, or currently known as the Patriot Park subdivision, although there have been a lot of progress through the years on that. And then you can see there's a very small, short piece of force main to a red dot. That red dot just indicates the project limits. So this was the city of Jacksonville's portion of the project with DOT and MWASA. So this was our share of the agreement. From there, we start with the red dot at the top at Poplar Branch. And you can see that there's several different things going on in this area. I'll start with the magenta color, pink color line that you see. That is a 3-inch low pressure system. It is there to tie in existing development. Part of MWASA's mission is to identify and help areas with failing septic systems. So this was one of the areas that was identified for them to be able to tie into. And then you can see there's actually 3 sections of that along that side of Piney Green Road. Along with that, on the same side of Piney Green Road, is a 14-inch force main. And that force main actually collects the city's pump station, Poplar Branch Pump Station, and it also has several stub outs, but they're not full stub outs because it's a force main. It's actually an encasement under the road. So there's a steel pipe under the road that MWASA can install a force main through for future, either picking up existing development or for future development in the area. And then all of that makes its way to this pump station, which is actually located in Hunters Creek. I'm sorry, because of the size of the map, I had to cut it off there. But it's located just above Hunters Creek Middle School. So, and they have, or sorry, just below, this is Hunters Creek Middle School, sorry. That school is Hunters Creek Middle School. It's just below that. And it's on the south side of that stream that comes through. So from there, so that was all of the project that was constructed. Of course, the pump station was already there, but that's the project that was constructed with the Piney Green Road widening project. In addition to that project, MWASA had already constructed a project to pick up that Hunters Creek pump station and turn it over to the base. And it actually, they have a force main that runs from that pump station on base, which is what carries the wastewater to Camp Lejeune's wastewater treatment plant. But that was done under separate contract, and I'll talk about that in just a moment too. So this is the city's portion of the infrastructure. that 8-inch force main, that's kind of a dark force main that we can tie into in the future, 18-inch gravity sewer, the 12-inch stub out that we talked about for Patriot Park, the pump station, the 12-inch force main, and with that agreement, we have, through that system, 1.2 million gallons a day of capacity. So, but in the agreement, we actually reserve 0.2 million, so 200,000 gallons a day, for already developed lots. So basically, the city has 1 million gallons of capacity through that system all the way to Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune for 1 million gallons. So, and I'll talk in a minute about what that sets us up for. OMWASA's infrastructure is, again, the three areas of that 3-inch low-pressure system that we talked about to pick up existing developed lots. The 14-inch force main, which serves our portion of the project, as well as future tie-ins. And then 24-inch gravity sewer, and then the two 12-inch stub outs. Again, that's what the future would tie into. So this is kind of what those interlocal agreements look like. It said basically for the project that I just highlighted for you, the city would pay for our share, and OMWASA would pay for their share. And you have what those costs were. Basically, our portion was $1.3 million, $1.35 million. And OMWASA's portion was $2.38 million. And again, this was all done with an agreement with DOT to get it constructed along the Piney Green Road corridor before the road widening was completed. And then with that, there's also a portion of that agreement where the city pays OMWASA a reservation fee of $227,000 per year. And we do that in 2 biannual payments of roughly $111,000, $113,000, give or take. So we pay them once a year, I think once in March and once in November. Is that right? To reserve capacity in their system. Now, what that agreement is for is to actually take care of our 1 million gallons a day of capacity through the system that was not constructed as part of this project. It's for the system that was constructed to take the Hunters Creek pump station to Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune, because we reserved 1 million gallons a day of capacity in that system. And basically, those payments expire when the principal bond that covered the improvements expires. And I don't have the exact date of that, but I think we're somewhere past halfway on that or something. So that's what that reservation fee is, to secure our 1 million gallons of capacity. That's basically saying we buy into that system that we didn't help pay for. So that's our capacity there.
So how long ago was that put in the ground?
It started in 13. I think it finished in 16, maybe. I didn't go look at all the dates, but I think the agreement was originally dated like 2012 or 13. And I think construction finished in, I think our earliest payment was like 16, maybe.
I don't know when our earliest payment was.
So yeah, so I think it was completed right in that time
I
frame.
know that one contract or agreement was signed in 2012.
Yeah, and there was an amendment to that one. So, like I said, when you look at it, I mean, we started talking about this. Like my notes go back to 2009 or something. So, and I wasn't director at that point, but I was involved at various stages. So I do have. I did try to keep track of what we were doing and the decisions that were made at that time. And then as part of that agreement, of course, we've got to pay for treatment. So because that treatment goes to the base, so OMWASA bills us monthly for actual usage, and we have a flow meter, and it's based on that flow meter. So we're only paying for the $700 roughly a month that we pay is for actual usage. So if if we go up to 1 million gallons, obviously it's not going to be $700. That $700 covers somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20,000 gallons a day or so now. Is about somewhere in that area is about what we're sending. It varies a little bit, but that kind of gives you an idea.
If I remember correctly, and I was around back when dinosaurs were here, wasn't this part of the planning stage of the future development out that area? And that's one of the reasons why this was put in there. Because I remember asking the question then, where's the revenue going to come from to pay for it?
That's right. Well, that's a great transition. This was the original master plan for Patriot Park. It had, this is when Mr. Koenig owned it, it had 294 lots, single-family lots, and 378. So, roughly just shy of 700 homes. And this did not use all of the 1 million gallons. It actually served a larger area than just this development, but this was the primary development that we were targeting. Since then, it's been bought, and this is, I actually met with this developer today to discuss this development. So it is something that they are interested in moving forward. They've bought the entire site. Again, it's already been annexed. And you can see they've adjusted slightly. The whole first phase stays the same. They didn't propose to make any changes to the first phase. And this has not been approved. I did ask them if we could share this. So, but they did say, please just remember that this is kind of our best plan right now, that it could change. But you can see that they're targeting 455 single family lots. And then 336 multifamily units. So, they're well north of that 700 number. And then if you look, it's hard to read on the screen, I know, but they actually break down by lot size the number of lots that they're proposing in their site data block. But this is what we're currently looking at right now in working with this developer. Again, that sewer stub, I'll go back because it shows up here. That sewer stub out is right there. So the one that we installed across Piney Green Road that ties into our system is right at the entrance of that development.
So is that right there at Centerview? That entrance?
Yes, it's to the left of it.
Okay.
Now,
Is there going to have to be traffic expansion or anything?
I think it was accommodated for in the plan of Piney Green Road. Because the plan for the development, some of the master plan was available when that was laid out. So all of the crossovers are previously identified. I'm pretty sure the signal locations have all been identified. So I think I'm sure it will take some traffic improvements. Especially if you look over here, this project requires multiple entrances, so it'll tie into Halltown Road. So, but if you're looking at Piney Green Road, I'm sure there'll be a right turn lane and all of those kind of things. But I don't think you'll see road widening or I don't know about signal or anything like that, because I know all that's predefined.
Now, are those house numbers, is that in the whole entire project or just in what's highlighted?
That is, I think that's in what's highlighted.
So if you add
if you add the 200, I think there's 205 in the first phase, it carries the entire project just over 900 lots.
So that first phase is the grayed out section to the right?
That's correct.
that'd be similar to what we're maybe getting down on Gum Branch soon, so.
That's right.
Is our whole infrastructure able to, let's say both those get done in the next, say, 10 years, can it handle all that between both those developments?
The great thing, I know that the Piney Green sewer system was discussed heavily. The great thing about the Piney Green system is it puts no additional requirement on our existing system or on our wastewater treatment plant. So all of this development is outside of our current facilities because it all goes down Piney Green Road into the base's wastewater treatment plant. And we work a lot with the base. You know, they are excited. They would like to see this development come through quicker because their studies show that our residential wastewater would help their treatment process because they treat a lot of industrial type wastewater. So it would help dilute some of that industrial type wastewater, which would help with some of their permit loading and those kind of things. So.
I'm also will sell the water though.
So we actually have water to this point right here. So there, and we are in discussions of how that would work because obviously you have to start on this bottom. I'm going to go back to this other just because it shows more. So our current water system comes in and stops right here at this entrance. Our sewer stops down here at this entrance. Well, you have to start, it's easier to start at the bottom of the sewer basin than it is at the top of the sewer basin. So the development needs to start in this first phase, which is on this, that's kind of that 200 lots that you see grayed out right here, kind of the same layout, right? So development needs to start there. So what we're trying to figure out is working with the developer. Owasa's got a water main right here. And eventually this will be, I mean, it is city development. So what we're trying to figure out is how that developer gets that water line in and at what point that's required. So we do have to worry, we do have to look at that more. But the plan is for that to be on city water and city sewer before full build out.
Do they have any idea for how all this is approved, when they will start?
So, you know, it's all market driven,
Yeah.
which was the answer we were given. But the developer says that he is ready to move forward with the first phase and would like to see houses beginning in like the next 2 years, which to put infrastructure in the ground, that's moving. But he said that the market studies show that there's a shortage and that if they could get the infrastructure in the ground, they could get the houses sold as fast as they could build them. So, and then the second phase, as they get the first phase under construction, the second phase they would begin working on.
Yeah, I think it'd be, the sooner the better, because obviously prices are going up on the wood and everything else. And
So, to your next question, you know, just to kind of orient you, this is White Oak High School. So the area that we've been talking about is kind of behind that, right? It's kind of generally in this area. This, while it would take amendments to agreements and other things that we can't control at this time, the original plan was to look at what could we possibly serve vacant lot-wise with the infrastructure that we have at Poplar Branch Pump Station. And Greg handled this master plan, and there are many pages of calculations that go into this, so I just snagged the map that was easy to understand. But he has, you know, if you look at each potential area, and you can see he's kind of got area 1 and area 2, he's got every area broken down by vacant, you know, the amount of vacant property in that area. If you were to try to develop it out, not just the individual lots, but looking at large tracts that could potentially be developed. We looked all the way up to 17, which is this gray line that runs through, and we actually looked slightly north of 17. And based on mostly following Northeast Creek, right? That's what we're following is that drainage system. It would take a series of pump stations You could potentially serve some of that, but what we said is kind of looking at that 17 north corridor, we probably would try to serve that through our existing system, but we could focus out here in what we call this Poplar Branch Basin, and then Weyerhaeuser owns several large tracts out in that area. That's why we called it the Weyerhaeuser service area. Not that they would go develop it, but, there are large developers that have come in and bought large acreage tracts from Weyerhaeuser in the past for development. So we could potentially serve all of that through a series of 2 or 3 different pump stations that would all come back to that Poplar Branch. So the great thing about that system is it sets us up to be able to do this in the future. Now, when we were looking at this, Greg and I looked at this probably, it's probably been 15 years ago now, when we started looking at this. And I don't remember when we finished this report, but, we were speculating you're out probably 40 or 50 years. So my crystal ball's okay, but, I'm not sure that I'll long be retired by the time that some of this would ever happen. But it does set, the idea is that we were trying to set the city up in the future for the ability to grow in that area. When we were looking at this, we were trying to identify, one of the problems that you see in other states is some of their state legislatures have come in and said, well, you can only do voluntary annexation, and some have said you can't do annexation at all. And of course, our state has said you can only do voluntary. So what brings somebody into the city is the services you provide, but number one is sewer. That's what, they can put more density, greater number of houses on the ground because they have access to sewer. So what we were trying to do is identify areas that we could reasonably serve with sewer and try to lay out plans that, if you looked at a big tract out here, how could you potentially serve that? Now, somebody in the future has got to make the decision whether it's worth serving or not, but we've tried to at least lay out the foundation where it could be served.
So is that area you drew the line on 17 North, the Wolf Swamp area, is that the same area you were talking about expansion with the harvest, summer harvest or whatever that area was?
So Harvest, let's see if I can orient myself. So Harvest Meadows is right in here. So you can see that line kind of goes through some of
Aren't
it.
you talking about going up 17 and jumping over at some?
So what we have is, so this is, just to orient you, that's Ramsey Road. This is Drummer Kellum. So this is the Harvest Meadows, and right now it comes into the Commons. There is also, so Drummer Kellum comes up to Ramsey Road right there. I know I'm getting a lot of red on this slide, so I apologize. But some of these farm fields that exist have already been purchased, and there's development plans on those, and they will bring those through Harvest Meadows, which I think is what you're asking about.
Yeah, I just remember
And then-
we had a meeting where you talked about running something up 17 towards Kelm Loop.
So we also have, that would all right now come through the Commons. We also have at this, let me see if I can do this real quick. So we'll start over just so you can see it. There is, so where Drummer Kellum comes down right here, there's a spot in here that's been annexed, kind of in this general area, that does not have service right now. Which I think is the one you're asking about. In our CIP, we have a stub out planned that would go under 17 and create the service area for that area that's been annexed. Yeah. So that would be served through North Marine Town Center, and it would go through our system like that.
Okay.
The Harvest Meadows out to Ramsey Road area would go through the Commons and then through our system like that. So the idea is once you start getting out this direction, we bring it through Piney Green. And again, we don't have to figure that out in our, at our wastewater treatment plant because we're relying on agreements with Onwassa and Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune. But when we started looking at the large tracts of developable area, obviously some of those tracks along Western Boulevard out to Ramsey Road come to mind. There's a little bit of area across Ramsey Road to the north of Carolina Plantation that could come to us. Part of that's already been annexed. So that could come to us. But we start looking at other large acreage tracts. This is the area that it's in. So we tried to start targeting a way to identify ways to serve those tracts. So with that, that's kind of the history of how we got here. Just to go back, this is what we're looking at right now. Again, we met with this developer today, actually, and we're working on that first phase, how we get that under construction and what that looks like. Again, the layout didn't change from previous. It's working out how we serve it with water, sewer, and getting all those approvals together. And then he would come back with that second phase. So, and I'm assuming that second phase would probably be broken into multiple phases because you have everything from single family to townhomes to apartment complex. So I'm sure that would be broken into multiple phases as well. Any questions, thoughts, comments?
There's a lot to cover. But you've talked about this, everything you've said, it kind of meets up with the CIP and the planning of what we talked about over. That's where he came up with the comments where this is a continuation of that. So it's a big development area out there.
It is.
To me, it's good the way that we're working with the base and Onwassa and interjoining everything. I'm sure that becomes cost effective when everybody gets in there.
Well, Mr. Thomas, you were part of this too because you were.
Yeah, it was back in the day.
It was.
It was like a no-brainer at the time.
It was. It's
green going in. You had Patriot Park. You thought was it going to be a customer immediately.
That's right.
And so, but it obviously it's taken longer than.
It has. It is. Admittedly, it's taken longer than we would have liked to have seen.
Of
course, we've gone through a downturn during that time period, COVID. So, there have been, of course, Mr. Koenig, who was the original developer, passed away. So that's probably one of the biggest problems with the movement of that development.
And also has what's their total allocation at the base there?
I think it's 3 million initial, and then they can expand it by $1 million or $2 million. I don't
So we've got
know.
a third of it.
I think so. I think that's correct.
This is 12 years ago. What would that cost to do today?
So we had, I showed you what we had in the construction, and I did go look. So total, if you look at what the city's spent total, including the monthly payments that we're paying, it's somewhere just over the $3 million mark, give or take. I guarantee you, if we tried to go into Piney Green Road today and construct that, you'd be talking a $30 million project, probably.
That's almost Garden View alone, isn't it?
Yeah. And, I couldn't imagine trying to construct that project now with everything, with the Piney Green the way it is. I guarantee you that'd be a $30 million project.
Yeah, I remember, like I said, back in the day when we were discussing all that, we were very concerned with the price and like I said, the return that we get from it. But when you get to where we are today, it ended up being a good investment.
It did. When we look at it as it's a shame because it would be nice to be have more customers on that line, so we're recovering some of that revenue. But what I will say is the other thing is all of that was growth. So that is also covered with our system development fee. So our system development fee does pick up, not the full, just over 3 million, but it does pick up the initial construction and some of those initial payments. And the reason for that is it is building growth for the city, so that's what our system development fee is for, is to cover expense of growth. But what it does is it adds capacity as well, because we've essentially added another 1 million gallons of treatment capacity through agreements. And if you'll remember when we've talked in the past about the cost of the expansion, it was roughly $16 million per 1 million gallons of expansion that we spent. So the great thing is we're not tying up, for this area, we're not tying up valuable capacity at our wastewater treatment plant. So aside from just the straight construction cost alone, if you look at the value of that capacity for us compared to LTS, if we had to expand it another 1 million gallons to handle development in this area, I mean, that $16 million was 2010 numbers. So again, that would be hard to even guess that. So I say that to say, while we don't have a lot of customers on that line, we are recovering some costs through our system development fees also.
Well, sounds good. Open discussion, do we have anything we want to talk about?
I do have one thing I wanted to give you an update. We've talked several times about the lead service line inventory that we're conducting. I was just going to give you a snapshot. Right now, so we have roughly 10,000 service lines that we have to investigate. We're supposed to have those investigated by October of this year. Right now, we're at roughly 2,700 service lines. You can see that we've concentrated in certain areas. Kind of as you see on the map at the bottom, this is just a snapshot of our dashboard. What we have, I pointed the top left number where it says lead. The important thing to notice there is it says any portion of the service line which is known to be made of lead. We found 36 service lines. They are not lead service lines, but they had lead materials that were used. So either lead solder in an old meter that we discovered, or some of those are lead goosenecks where they had the tie-in. It literally looks like a gooseneck. So you have those, and in some cases they're on our side of the meter, in some cases they're on the customer's side of the meter. And the other thing that I'll point out is while we have to do 10,000 inspections, it's actually double that, because you have to inspect both sides of the meter. You have to do the homeowner side and our side. So as you look at if you kind of look at the blue circle, you notice it's a circle with a slash through it. And then this one's a great example. Don't ask me what the color means because I don't have my dashboard turned on. But you'll see half of it's blue and half of it's gray. That blue indicates one type of material. The gray indicates a different type of material. So that one inspection point is actually 2 inspections. The left side is ours, the right side is the homeowners. So we are tracking it. We have one of the challenges we've been faced with is staff turnover. We've even tried hiring 2 temporary workers, and we've only been able to hire 1 to help us get through this. So it is something that we're looking at. We did price having a private company come in and help us, and that cost was over $3 million, which is obviously not something that we're really looking at as a viable I mean, I could hire a lot of temporary workers for $3 million. So we're trying to figure out, we are hitting this hard. We're trying to figure out what all needs to be done. The great thing is, as we concentrate in specific areas, we're kind of concentrating in an area and then moving over, and then concentrating in that area and then moving over. The idea is that the state will accept a model using reliable data. So if we get enough representative samples in a specific area, then what we can do is, based on the construction time period of the homes and what we found, we can say that that's a valid representation across that area. Now, that's still a lot of information to pull together. And where we're concentrating right now is down in the Bryn Mawr area. Which you can't really see them, but there's some that are kind of covered up in there that have already been inspected. So we are concentrating down in the Bryn Mawr area now. But, as you think about our community, we're really talking about homes that were built prior to 1987. Because in 1986, midway through 1986, they outlawed the use of lead and lead pipes in water systems. The 10,000 number is the number you see that predate 1987. So if you notice, the commons up here, there's not a circle anywhere because that was all in the 90s. Same with, Williamsburg Plantation, Carolina Forest. Parts of, you can kind of see in there mixed in, parts of Pebble Crossing, which is kind of behind the mall. That was 80s and 90s. And then
Parts of Northwoods.
Parts of Northwoods were, Woodlands is a great example. Those were 80s and 90s. So some of those may be in, and some of those would not. But the good thing is we're tracking all of that. It is a heavy lift for our staff, and they're trying to concentrate on that without dropping our normal repairs. So admittedly, sometimes some of our smaller repairs may sit slightly longer, or in some cases, we've used a contractor to fix something that we would have done in-house, but we're trying to balance that staff.
But what do you do with that information once you do all the testing?
So EPA has sent a mandate to the state that says it'll all be done by October of 2024. The state is responsible for enforcing it. We have a spreadsheet that we have to submit to the state. They sent us a template, and actually our information is built off the template. As we fill it out, it automatically fills in the template that the state sent us. So what they'll do, the real next step is at some point we're going to have to replace every service line that involves lead. What the state hasn't come out and said yet, and I can tell you that there's legislation and discussion out there floating around, is not only are we going to have to do lead, at some point we'll have to do galvanized service lines too. The sad thing is, I hate to say it, but 100 years from now, they'll probably be saying the same thing about PVC. It's the material that they had at the time. It was what should be used. And really, the only concern with lead is if you have aggressive water or water that sits in the pipe, because lead will leach into the water. But it takes contact time. So as long as you flush your system out, there's no concern. And we do lead testing in accordance with state requirements. And to my knowledge, we've only had one case in the last 10 years where we found a home that had a hit of lead in the water. And in that, we went and talked to that homeowner, and he's like, I live alone and I have a bathroom, and you told me that, I'm not supposed to, I'm supposed to take the sample in the morning before I use any water so that it's got a reasonable contact time. So the idea, right, is that it sits overnight, but it's not like you flushed it out, because if you flushed it out, you don't get a good sample. And he's like, I forgot, so I went to a bathroom that I never use because I live alone, and I pulled the sample from that bathroom. Well, you know, we got curious, well, when's the last time you used that bathroom? He was like, I don't know, months. So, you know, we think, of course, what we did is we gave him another, we had to submit the result because we had the result. So we submitted it, but we gave him another one and said, well, you know, we don't care which bathroom you use, but just use one, you know, use a faucet that you've used at some point recently. Just do it before you draw any water. And of course, it came back with no detection. So, but it's the material that was used during the time because it was easy to work with and it held up. And what we found so far is, as you can imagine, when you get in an area that was all constructed roughly at the same time, it was typically by the same builders. So they're all the materials seem to match in that area. And you can kind of see when you get to, even if it's adjacent to it, if it's a new section, you can kind of see if there's a material change, it's everything in that, you know, along that street or in that same section, which does make sense when you think about construction practices. So, but the good news is, you know, if we have to go replace lead lines, right now we're not replacing, you know, a lot. And we're not replacing any whole lines. We're only replacing where it was used. So we still have a lot to do before October. We're going to try to meet as much of it as we can. There is one option. As you get to the end, there is a criteria where you can check unknown. So if you don't know, you check it as unknown, which means if you didn't investigate it, you have to check it as unknown. The question we have is, all right, if we do that, what does that mean? Are you now going to force us to treat it, worst case scenario, like it's a lead service line? So those are questions that we haven't answered yet, but we will have answered by October. And of course, the other is what happens if we don't have it finished and we don't submit with unknown, then we know we take an NOV, but we don't know what that NOV means. So, you know, it could be, well, you need to get it finished. Well, okay, that's what we're trying to do. So, but TJ and Michael have recently gone to a conference where they talked in depth about this, and we're way ahead of a lot of other communities. So he said there's some communities that can't even figure out, they just don't have the staff. And the real kicker is there's money available to do this, but it's only available for communities of less than 25,000 population. So.
Can you elaborate on that bottom right-hand corner box, lead service lines?
So those are the ones that had some sort of detection. So it's just a brief summary. And again, it's probably the gooseneck. We know we have those, which is why we test for the lead.
The meter, right? At the meter.
Yep.
So all those are on the homeowner side?
No, it depends. That you can tell. You know, if it's, I'm gonna guess because I hate to do that, but I don't have the key in front of me. But the red probably means that it was detected. Because to me that means stop. That means it's detected. So you would see one side and then the other side. So if it's red and blue, it probably means that the red is on one side. I would guess that's probably, if it's on the left, I would guess that's our side. But I would have to verify that. And then on the other side, it's blue, which probably means they had a, you know, you notice those are all in the same area, just like I talked about. What that probably means is that homeowner had something replaced at some point in time, which is why it's not on that side. But again, it's not a full service line. It's literally the gooseneck connection. And if we can identify those, we can actually come back and I think we'll be able to replace those. And we may be able to get a grant to do that. But again, there's no concern as long as you don't let it sit for, long periods of time.
And you drink it. I mean,
Yep.
because you don't flush it, you don't use it for washing or
That's right.
showering or anything like that.
Yep, that's
It's
right.
To drink it.
So it's still a responsibility of the homeowner to replace those pipes on their side?
That hasn't come out yet.
I know we talked
But I
about that once before.
would bet a lot of money it's going to be the water purveyor's responsibility to replace it, even if it's on the homeowner's side.
Up to the house.
Up to the house, yeah, not inside the house. The reason I would guess that is because the legislation says that we're responsible for detecting it. So if they're making us responsible for detecting it, I'm going to assume at some point they're going to make us responsible for replacing it. And, if you think about, all of this follows what happened in Flint, Michigan, Jefferson County, Mississippi, and there was 2 others. So all of this follows what's happened in those other communities. And again, if you go look at those cases, it's because either somebody didn't do what they were supposed to be doing, or water sat in pipes for too long before it was used. So we're at the point now of, thinking that they're probably going to require not just us, the water purveyor, to replace that side. Because if you and I both know, if they leave it up to a homeowner, it'll never get done.
It costs money.
Yep. It just won't be a priority. So, questions on that?
No, I think we've answered quite a bit. I mean, it's, to me, from where I sit, every time you speak about a project or what's going on, we reflect back to the CIP and all the other things you've got going on. And it gives us that situational awareness. So when you face with this again, it's like, wait, I just saw a slide on that a while back. Yeah. And the city side and the homeowner side, who's responsible to replace one?
The good thing is we'll have all of these, the way we're doing this is they're all geolocated. So if we have to go right back to them, we can go right back to the area where we tested so we can identify it and replace it. So it's not like we'll have to guess at the information, if they say 3 years from now you're going to be responsible for replacing it, we have it all geolocated. So we know right where to go to. It's not just going to an address and then dig it up and trying to figure out where it's at. We have that location identified.
All right. Well, and all that, is there any other discussions that we want to talk about? All right. If not, again, thanks Wally and Derek for presenting this, and also thank Lisa and Alan back there for supporting us on the audiovisual. Our next regular scheduled meeting will be at 5:30 p.m. on Thursday, July 11th, 2024.
I'm trying to probably cancel that because it's right there the week after July 4th.
July 4th, so we'll probably go to...
And that's, we have that's one of those meetings when we have it, we do have quorum issues, so it just makes sense to go ahead and plan for that.
Okay. Roger, understood. So if there's no other further business, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So move.
A second?
Second.
All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.